10 years ago, 6-year-old Timmothy Pitzen went missing. May 11th, 2011. His mother unexpectedly signed him out of his kindergarten class early. 3 days later, Mom Amy Pitzen was found dead of an apparent suicide in a Rockford hotel room. Timothy was nowhere to be found. Police did find a note that said he'd be taken care of, but never found again. Here's our original reporting from 10 years ago when we first learned Timothy was missing.
It's rough on all of us.
Dan Pitzen and his family are struggling to cope with the apparent suicide of his daughter-in-law, Amy Pitzen. But even harder on the family is not knowing where her son, Timothy, is.
When you found out that she'd been found in that motel and that Tim wasn't with her, what was your first thought?
That she could have killed him too, but then we found the note, or they found the note after that, and we were relieved then that she said he was okay.
Police say Amy checked her son out of Greenman Elementary in Aurora Wednesday morning, took him to the Brookfield Zoo, then to Key Lime Cove Water Park in Gurnee, where they spent the night at a resort. Thursday, the two made a trip to the Kalahari Resort in the Wisconsin Dells, where Timothy was last seen checking out with his mother around 10 a.m. Friday. Friday night, Amy Pitzen was captured on surveillance video at a Winnebago grocery store, as well as the Rockford Hotel where her body was found, but there was no sign of Tim. The last time a family member spoke to him was Friday afternoon.
How did he say that Amy and Tim sounded?
Okay, everything was fine.
Aurora police say that was one of several calls Amy Pitzen made that day to family and friends.
He did not seem in peril. She did not seem in peril. Throughout this whole thing, she never threatened to bring any harm to Timothy.
That gives his family hope that he will be found safe and sound.
We'd like him back. He needs his father.
A child playing and pretending. This newly released home video shows Timothy Pitzen the way his family remembers him. It's all they can do because the 6-year-old disappeared almost 3 months ago. I spoke with his grandmother over the phone.
What do you miss most about your grandson right now?
His smile and his laughter. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
The hurt began the day Timothy's mom picked him up from school. You see the surveillance video here. She took him on a road trip. This is them at a Wisconsin Dells hotel. Then on May 14th, Amy Fry Pitzen was found dead in a Rockford motel. She committed suicide, but left a note about Timothy, saying he was with people who would care for him.
She did indicate that we would never find him.
They've searched parts of Illinois. Mother and son visited. What investigators have found is Timothy's blood in the back seat of his mom's SUV.
I understood that he had a bloody nose.
Mm-hmm. And that was just a few days before he disappeared?
Correct.
Is it more than what would have come from a nosebleed?
Well, you know, I'm not a medical expert, so I really can't, I wouldn't know how to answer that. I can say that it was a rather large amount of blood, though.
But police also say this.
Until we have concrete evidence that we shouldn't be hopeful, we're going to be hopeful.
We have to believe what Amy said in her note, that he's alive, that he's safe.
It's a case that's impossible to forget. No one wanted to give up on little Timothy Pitzen. His family didn't think his mother capable of harming him. So the search continued year after year.
I just know my daughter would never have hurt him.
Her daughter, in 2011, took her own life after pulling Timothy from school and taking him to a pair of water parks. But she wrote in a suicide note, Timothy was safe. Grandma believed that. In the media coverage of a new age-progressed photo, it jogged a memory.
I would be delighted if it was truly him.
But there's hesitation as she spoke via phone tonight. It's been 3 years. In this alleged sighting, a woman claims she saw the boy at a garage sale, which piqued Grandma's interest.
It could be that he was at a garage sale. He enjoyed going to garage sales, and he loved it, helping with them, too.
And that woman's garage sale in Rockton, which doesn't mean anything in particular to Grandma, but she notes.
I know that they felt a lot of Amy's phone activity and car activity was around that area.
Now she waits, not with bated breath, because big facts stand in the way.
It's a very long time for no one to see him, and then all of a sudden someone to see him.
Underneath this tree in an Aurora backyard, there's a heartbreaking reminder of the little boy who once called this house his home. Preserved in concrete, a tiny footprint and handprint next to the name Tim, short for Timmothy Pitzen, seen here in this home video. He was just 6 years old when his mother, Amy Fry Pitzen, checked him out of Greenman Elementary School on May 11, 2011, and started a road trip that would end with her dead and no sign of Timothy for years. Surveillance cameras captured the last images of Timothy with his mom at Key Lime Cove and Kalahari Resort in Wisconsin Dells. The couple who bought his childhood home 5 years ago knew about what happened and always believed one day Timothy might find his way back to the house. So they kept his playground set and the bit of concrete from his old back porch just in case.
A potential break in the case came in April of 2019 when police were called to a neighborhood in Newport, Kentucky after reports of a man acting suspiciously. When police picked him up, the man told them he was Timmothy Pitzen, who had gone missing 8 years earlier.
He told me he had been kidnapped. He just really wanted to get home. He lived in Illinois. That's what he told me.
Tonight we spoke with the woman who called 911 after she was approached by the boy seen in this photo, who said he'd been running for hours, starting in Cincinnati and then crossing a bridge over the Ohio River and into the city of Newport, Kentucky.
He told me his name was Timmothy Pitzen.
When police arrived, he told investigators he had just escaped from 2 kidnappers that had been holding him for 7 years. When they searched the name, the unbelievable account suddenly became possible.
He is entered as missing out of Illinois.
In May 2011, then 6-year-old Timothy's mother picked him up from school in Aurora. Amy Fry Pitzen then took the boy on a 2-day trip to the Brookfield Zoo, a water park in Gurnee, and finally the Wisconsin Dells, where the last known sighting of Timothy was caught on tape as they checked out of a resort. 2 days later, Fry Pitzen was found dead in a Rockford hotel, along with that haunting note saying that her son was safe, but no one would find him. That ominous message rang true for nearly 8 years, perhaps until today. The boy, who is now being treated at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, told police he was being held by 2 white men built like bodybuilders. He'd been staying at a Red Roof Inn and said his kidnappers drove a Ford SUV with unknown Wisconsin license plates. Tonight, Timothy's aunt told us they've been in contact with investigators who are currently running a DNA test with known samples from the boy. They'll also ask him questions that only Timothy would know.
We hope it's true. What's hard is the story that he escaped from captors, and your mind goes in too many directions that you don't want to think about.
Jim Pitzen's Clinton, Iowa home is quiet. A dog barks when I ring the doorbell, but no one answers. It's been almost 8 years since Pitzen's then 6-year-old son vanished without a trace after spending 2 days traveling with his mother.
I just miss my son and I wish he was here,
said Pitzen back in 2011. To this day, his son's picture still covers his Facebook page.
He must be, I just can't imagine what he's been going through.
Troy Murphy went to high school with Pitzen. He is simply stunned at hearing Timothy Pitzen may be alive and in Ohio.
I got 2 boys of my own, and I can't imagine what he's going through or what he's feeling. It's just, I'm a little goosebumpy right now too, so, I mean, wow.
Hope, a prevalent emotion tonight, as Timothy's maternal grandmother sends this one message.
That we never stopped looking for him, thinking about him, and that we love him and will do everything to get him back to a good life.
He said he escaped his kidnappers, but DNA tests proved it was a lie. Here's Megan Hickey's original report from Cincinnati, where the suspect was hospitalized.
Investigators still don't have a motive for why Brian Reaney pretended to be Timothy Pitzen, but they believe that he learned the details of the boy's life from a 2020 special on Pitzen that aired just a few weeks ago. He knew the specific details of Timothy Pitzen's missing persons case and told police in Newport, Kentucky that he just escaped 2 kidnappers who'd been holding him for 7 years. But the supposed boy,
First name Timothy,
turned out to be a 23-year-old convicted criminal, fresh out of prison. And we wanted to know how investigators could have failed to recognize the age difference, transporting Rini to a Cincinnati children's hospital. The FBI says,
while our agents and other law enforcement partners were skeptical that this person was who he claimed to be,
but Special Agent in Charge Herb Stapleton said it was their duty to the family of Timmothy Pitzen to follow up and make sure it wasn't him. Rini submitted to a DNA test, which proved that the story really was too good to be true. But investigators found it odd that he refused to be fingerprinted. It turns out it's because that's how he's gotten caught before. The U.S. District Attorney said that twice Rini has claimed to be the victim of juvenile sex trafficking in the past, and fingerprinting revealed the truth.
It is not okay to make false claims to law enforcement about serious matters like this.
Investigators say he shockingly kept up the Pitzen charade even after the DNA results came back, and the FBI gave him a chance to come clean.
When this kind of claim is made, law enforcement at the federal, state, and local levels moved heaven and earth to try to determine if they had in fact found this missing child. And it's not okay to do it because of the harm that it causes, the pain for the family of that missing child.
The Newport, Kentucky residents who helped him, prayed for him over the last 2 days, told me they can't fathom why this 23-year-old man would go to such drastic lengths to impersonate a missing child.
I prayed that it was going to be him. I didn't say that out loud, but I truly in my heart thought it was him.
Brian Michael Rini's own brother is disgusted. Jonathan Rini said he hasn't talked to his brother in years, but worries that he's off of the medicine that he's prescribed for a range of mental health issues.
He was receiving treatment, but then he stopped and started getting in more trouble. Actually started going to, well, he was in juvie a lot when we were kids, and then he started going to actual jail, and then he recently just got out of prison.
Fresh out of a 1.5-year stint with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction on March 7th, he was ordered to 3 years of probation upon release, which would have required him to obtain a written travel permit before leaving the state of Ohio. No word tonight if that happened. And it's clear that long before claiming to be Pitzen, Rini had a lot of contact with police. Check out his criminal record dating back to at least 2013, which includes a history of lying. We discovered that he pleaded guilty to 2 charges of making false alarms in 2015 and 2016. His brother says that he's even impersonated him.
He used my name in a traffic stop in Norton and then skipped court, and I received a traffic warrant for it.
Now you got to add fraud to the list. And you've also hurt a family.
As for how investigators could have possibly mistaken a 23-year-old man for a 14-year-old boy, Newport police tell me that they were skeptical, but unlike his mugshot, Rini appeared very thin and very unhealthy, which made it more difficult to gauge his age, adding to the confusion over this unbelievable account that turned out to be too good to be true.
I hope he gets help. I also hope he goes to prison for this, or at least an institution, but I have no idea.
Rini is being held without bond. If convicted, he could face up to 8 years in federal prison. Reporting in Cincinnati, Megan Hickey, CBS 2 News.
In December 2020, Brian Rennie was charged with lying to a federal agent and sentenced to 2 years in prison. To this day, Timmothy Pitzen's case remains an active missing persons investigation in the Aurora Police Department. Age progression photos show us what he would look like as a 16-year-old today. If you think you recognize this photo or have any information, contact the Aurora Police Department's tip line at 630-256-5516. For CBS in Chicago, I'm Brad Edwards. We'll be right back.